Good day again. This is the second part of the discussion on WTO. I hope na intindihan niyo yung first part natin. Ang presentation niya, no, kung napansin niyo is summarized na, no, at lahat na ng mga pwede nating ma-discuss or ma-describe sinabi natin, no, for the creation of the World Trade Organization. So ngayon naman, this discussion will be the WTO Dealings. Yan. Ano ba yung mga concern, no? Concern ng WTO. Okay, so first, there are three, no? Unahin ko sana yung goods no? Pero ayun yun, isa yung goods, no? Second is itong services at ang third ay itong intellectual property rights. So dito tayo magpo-focus muna ngayon sa WTO dealings. So it began with trade in goods from 1947 to 1994. So itong 1947 to 1994 na to, this is the GATT, no? The General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade. So nag-focus ang GATT dito kung paano maayos na iti-trade or mati-trade ang goods. No? And yun, no, nabanggit na rin na ang ginawang way para mas maayos i-trade ang goods is to lower the tariffs. No? And also, ayusin ang mga tinatawag na trade barriers. Example ng trade barriers are non-tariff, no, trade barriers and tariff trade barriers. So when you say tariff, the barriers came from the tariff itself. No, there is a incremental amount of the rate to be collected, rate of duty, no, to be collected. So mataas siya. While the non-tariff barriers are those restrictions that are implemented for the importations. So, and before yan a grant na ma-release or ma-deliver sa customer, sa importer, dapat na-comply muna itong mga importation restriction. So, yun yung tinatawag natin na non-tariff barriers. The text of the GATT spell out important rules, particularly non-discrimination. Since 1995, the Marrakesh Agreement establishing the WTO and its annexes, including the updated GATT, has become the WTO's umbrella agreement. It has annexes dealing with specific sectors relating to goods, such as agriculture, and with specific issues such as product standards, subsidies, and action taken against dumping. A recent significant addition was Trade Facilitation Agreement, which entered into force in 2017. So dito, no, dun sa, yun pa rin, no, kasi yun nga ang pinakang objective talaga is ma-identify itong mga goods na dapat maayos yung kanilang sistema ng trading. So at yun, meron ditong mga tinatawag na annexes na na nagawa ng update or napansin at yun ay isinama para dito sa trading agreement. Okay, itong susunod naman is the services. Banks, insurance firm, telecommunication companies, tour operators, hotel chains, and transport companies looking to do business abroad enjoy the same principle of more open trade that originally only applied to trade in goods. So yan, no? Na-extend dito sa mga services na pinoprovide ng bangko, ng mga insurance company, ng mga telecommunication company, at marami pang iba ang ang advantage of having a trade agreement through services. No? These principles appear in the General Agreement on Trade in Services or yung GATS, no? Acronym niya is GATS. WTO members have also made individual commitments under the GATS stating which of their service sectors they are willing to open to foreign competition and how open those markets are. Okay, yun, na-identify and then nag-commit ang bawat member country na titingnan nila yung, yung agreement na yon at check nila yung kanilang mga policy kung nakaka-apekto ba ito at para maging competitive na din yung bansa nila in case na may mga services na pumapasok sa kanilang bansa. Okay, ang pangatlo naman ay intellectual property. Okay, it is also included under the WTO. The Intellectual Property Agreement contains rules for trade in ideas and creativity. So kasi nga intellectual property, dapat yan ay pahalagahan because these are creation, no? mga like musician, like other professionals na nag-create, mga authors ng books, anything was nag-ugat or nag-originate dun sa creation. The rules state how copyrights, patents, trademarks, geographical names used to identify products, industrial designs, and undisclosed information such as trade secrets. And these are intellectual property and should be protected when trade is involved. Okay. For the dispute settlement, the WTO procedure for resolving trade conflicts under the dispute settlement is to enforce the rules. Siyempre, napagkasundoan na yan kung ano yung ginawa nilang rules, yun ang susundin. No? We should enforce the rules and therefore ensuring the trade flows smoothly. The governments bring disputes to the WTO if they think their rights under the WTO agreements are being infringed. So, pwede mong dalhin ang iyong sa loobin or ang iyong case mismo sa WTO kasi ito ay ang violation din kasi ay nag-ugat doon sa mga policy na ipinapatupad ng WTO. Judgment by special appointment, independent experts are based on interpretation of the agreements and individual members' commitments. So, syempre, parang ang kalalabasan nito is international court, pero yung court na ito ay base lamang doon sa kung ano yung mga rules and regulation na pinapatupad ng WTO. The system encourages members to settle their differences through consultation with each other. So yun, mas magandang mag-usap muna yung dalawang bansa at mas isettle na nila, no? Kasi kung ang pagsisettle ay makakaayos din sa kanila pareho na hindi na tumagal yung kaso na yon. If this proves to be unsuccessful, they can follow a stage-by-stage procedure that includes the possibility of ruling by a panel of experts and the chance to appeal the ruling on legal grounds. Kung hindi daw masettle, anong gagawin? Magkakaroon na ito ng discussion, no? Kasama ang mga panel of expert at i-apply na ang mga legality ng kanilang mga action. Confidence in the system is borne out by the number of cases brought to the WTO. More than 500 cases since the WTO was established compared with the 300 dispute deal with during the entire life of the GATT. So may mga kaso rin naman na talaga diyan napapag-usapan. At yun nga ang ginagawa nila para these cases be solved, no? Para maayos na nila ito. How about sa trade monitoring? Many members see the reviews as constructive feedback on their policies. All WTO members must undergo periodic scrutiny, its review containing reports by the member concerned and the WTO Secretariat. So there is trade monitoring para inoobserbahan kung how the one particular country um, exercise na yung kanyang trading system. Excuse me, trading system. Ayan. Um, the WTO undertakes regular monitoring of global trade measures. Initially launched the wake of the financial crisis of 2008, and this global trade monitoring exercise has become a regular function of the WTO with the aim of highlighting WTO members' implementation of both trade facilitating and trade restricting measures. So dito ang susi rito is to monitor yung activities nitong mga member countries. Para, syempre, yung information na yon would also be brought in the general meeting or sa round of discussion, round of talks. How about the WTO trade rules? The WTO agreements cover goods, service, and intellectual property right, yung nauna natin. They spell out the principles of liberalization and the permitted exemption. They include individual countries' commitments to lower customs tariffs and other trade barriers and to open and keep open services markets. They set procedures for settling disputes. They prescribe special treatment for developing countries. They require governments to make their trade policies transparent by notifying the WTO in force and measures adopted, and through regular reports by the Secretariat on the country's trade policies. Okay. As member country, syempre meron kang copy ng mga agreements, yung restriction against the goods, the services, or and intellectual property. So at yan ay pag-aaralan niyo yan as a country. Kasi nga, yung guide mo ngayon sa bansa mo will be harmonious dun sa pinirmahan yung agreement sa WTO. Yan. So, ito naman, ito kasi is pagtutulungan mostly, no, kaya nila binuo ang WTO is para masolve yung mga issues, no. Hindi naman ito patigasan or pagalingan, no. So kaya kailangan dito yun nung mas maayos na pakikipagkaibigan sa mga bansa, no. Kaya yun, kung ang pagbaba ng taripa or lowering tariffs would help, ginagawa naman yan ng mga bansa no? Para nga yung kanilang trading system or ma-apply nila ito ng maayos. At syempre, yung mga dispute ay masolve nila. Okay, next. The results of Uruguay round of multilateral trade negotiation. Yan. So itong Uruguay round, again, this is the 8th round of talks. No? The legal text is daunting list of 60 agreements, annexes, decision, and understanding. In fact, the agreements fall into a simple structure with 6 main parts. The umbrella agreement, which is the agreement na pag-convert into the WTO. Another one is agreement for each of the 3 broad areas of trade that the WTO covers, such as goods, services, and intellectual property. And another is the dispute settlement and review of government's trade policy. Yan yung nakapaloob dito sa agreement na ito. No? 60 agreements. There are annexes and there are decision and understanding. Yun yung makikita dito sa legal text. The agreements for the two largest areas, goods and services, share a common three-part outline, even though the detail is sometimes quite different. No, magkasama ang goods and services. They start with broad principle, the general agreement on tariffs and trade for goods and the general agreements on trade in services. The third area, trade-related aspects of intellectual property rights, also falls into this category, although at present, it has no additional parts. So dito, minimension lang kung ano-ano yung composition ng legal text. No? At yun, binanggit dito na different areas, no? At yung dalawa nga magkasama ang General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade at ang General Agreements on Trades in Services. No? At yung pangatlo, ano daw, also falls in this category, although it has no additional parts. There are extra agreements and annexes dealing with the special requirements of specific sector or issues. So, yung sinasabing extra agreement, yun, siyempre, hindi yun yung pinakang main concern. At kung may mga possibility na matouch ang ibang issue, doon nila ito pinapasok sa extra agreements. And finally, there are the detailed and lengthy schedules of commitments made by individual countries allowing specific foreign products or service providers access to their markets. Forget, this take the form of binding commitments on tariff for goods in general and combination of tariffs and quotas for some agricultural goods. Okay. Detailed and lengthy schedules, no, of commitments. So, yun. Kasi ang ano dito is you have to be to carefully study ano yung mga nakasulat na schedules of commitment. And syempre yung mababasa mo rin dito kung ano yung kinumit ng isang bansa para sa kanyang trade facilitation. Forgets the commitment state how much access foreign service providers are allowed for a specific sector, and they include list of types of services where individual countries say they are not applying the most favored nation principle of non-discrimination. So doon mo rin makikita kung ano yung mga hindi pwedeng i-apply sa isang bansa at ano yung mga pwede namang gawin sa ibang sa bansang yan. So ang key rito is you have to analyze, no? Read then yung ano na yun, yung legal text. Underpinning these are the dispute settlement, which is based on the agreements and commitments and trade policy review and exercise in transparency. Much of the Uruguay round deal with the first two parts, general principles and principles for specific sectors. At the same time, market access negotiations were possible for industrial goods. Once the principles had been worked out, negotiation could proceed on commitments for sectors such as agriculture and services. So these are common na naman to eh. Self-explanatory na to. No? Siyempre, yung kung ano yung mga part ng legal text na yun, you have to read that. No? Okay, and then the last, once the principle had been worked out, the negotiation could proceed on the commitments for sectors such as agriculture and services. Okay. The next topic is additional agreements. Okay. May other agreements, mayroon pang additional agreements. Ano naman to? Another group of agreements not included in the diagram is also important. The two plurilateral agreement not signed by all members. So ano yun? Civil aircraft and government procurement. So may mga bansang hindi raw nag-sign dito. These agreements are not static. They are renegotiated from time to time and new agreements can be added to the package. So siguro may mga bansang hindi pa talaga ano siya, may interest sa ganong klase ng ng kasunduan for civil aircraft and government procurement. Kasi itong civil aircraft, syempre malaki ang nito, ang investment na pwedeng ilabas. And the government procurement din, no. Since this is a government, kasi maraming yan, pangangailangan. At kapag government, ayan, ang nagpo-procure, syempre yung hindi lang ilang piraso, kundi talagang yan, yung supply talaga sa isang bansa at kasi maraming pangangailangan. Kaya there are countries na hindi pa rito talaga totally nag-signify ng kanilang support, no? Or they did not sign for this. Okay. Many are now being negotiated under the Doha Development Agenda launched by WTO Trade Minister in Doha, Qatar. Next topic is the WTO and tariffs. The bulkiest result of the Uruguay round are the 22,500 pages listing individual countries' commitments on specific categories of goods and services. So marami, no? Maraming pages to 22,500. Okay. This include commitments to cut and bind their customs duties rates on imports of goods. In some cases, tariffs are being cut to zero. There is also significant increase in the number of bound tariffs, duty rates that are committed in the WTO and are difficult to raise. So itong epekto ng WTO sa tariff, yun, kasi nga, ang objective is ibaba, nangyari naman dito na naibaba nila ang taripa dito sa Uruguay round. Next is the tariff cuts. Developed countries' tariff cuts were for the most part praised in over 5 years from January 1, 1995. The result is 40% cut in their tariffs on additional or on industrial products from an average of 6.3 to 3.8%. The value of imported industrial products that receive duty-free treatment in developed countries will jump from 20 to 44%. So ito naman mga developed countries, sinabi nga na nagkaroon sila ng tariff cut, no? At it resulted dito sa 40%, no, cut of their tariff. So ano-anong mga sector ang binawasan? Itong industrial sector, binawasan nila ito ng 6.3 to 3.8. Ang average niya, no, averaging from 6.3 to 3.8. Yan yung average nung pagbawas. So dapat pala 3.8 to 6.3. Yan. And the value of imported industrial products that receive duty-free treatment in developed countries will jump from 20 to 44%. 20 to 44%. So, yung makakakuha ng incentives through industrial products and duty-free treatment. So, 20 to 44, almost papuntang kalahati. There will also be fewer products charged by high rates. The proportion of imports into developed countries from all sources facing tariffs rates of more than 15% will decline from 7% to 5%. The proportion of developing country export facing tariffs above 15% in industrial countries will fall from 9 to 5%. So ito, maraming mga percentage. At ang purpose lang ng percentage na to, ng this these numbers is ipakita na talagang nagkaroon ng pagbaba itong mga taripa. No? Sa Uruguay round, package has been improved. No? March 26, 1997, there are 40 countries na accounting for 92% of world trade information technology products agreed to eliminate import duties and other charges on these products by year 2000. Yan. So napakagandang balita, no? 92% almost na tatanggalin na nila ang taripa nila sa information technology products. Thank you, and we will continue on the third part. Bye-bye.